Hello, everybody. Welcome to the February 7th occurrence of the Gateway API Gamma meeting. As a reminder, as always, this meeting is covered by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, so please be respectful of everybody as we discuss here. Reminder that this meeting has an open agenda, so that means regardless of what you want to talk about, you can put it here on our agenda, and we'll talk about it. We also ask that you go ahead and add your name to the attendees list here in that agenda doc. I put the link in the Zoom chat here. This helps us to know just who showed up and be able to track how much people care about this kind of stuff. So thankful for everybody who is here. I'll go ahead and get started with a recap of what we covered last meeting during our 8 a.m. Pacific meeting last week. We talked about the remaining areas of focus before we get to the Gateway API 070 release API review. Did some milestone pruning. I won't spend too much time here because we're going to do some of the same things today, but did some good administrative work here to move us forward in that milestone. We got a couple of big PRs merged that expanded the scope of our original GEP a bit. So adding support for consumer routes and other X route types like TCP route and TLS route. So got those in, really excited about that. Talked about conformance test difficulties that exist within Gateway API implementations. The big one here was assumptions that your load balancer or your gateway is already created instead of, or I can't remember which direction it went. But yeah, basically we want to understand it as a pattern for those implementations that expect a user to manually provision the resources. And there is some desire to kind of create a pattern for this within the conformance tests and within the API in general. And I think I saw Shane create a issue or PR on some of this, and there's some good discussion in that, whichever forum that was. So good to see that made its way up into the general meeting. There's a good bit of discussion about proxy configuration in mesh and looking for a place to put some of these things like H2 settings, window sizes, etc. Istio in particular had interest in doing this. It didn't really seem to be a good place for it. And this was kind of moving on to the last point. That's what led into our discussion on policy attachment and how several folks felt like it was a bit burdensome for some of the more common needs in mesh world. And we bubbled that conversation up to the Gateway API meeting, the main meeting yesterday, actually. And I've got an action item. Actually, I've got a tab with the discussion, the new discussion, all like filled out. Need to like finish writing it and hit send in order to do that and just spur a conversation on policy attachment and taking another look at it. And Flynn actually also has an action item for timeout specifically because there's a good bit of interest in doing some standardization around timeouts. So that was the last meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments about our recap? Going once, going twice. All right, no takers. Awesome. So now we dig into our actual agenda today, and it's pretty light so far. Like I said, if anybody's got a question or a topic to discuss, feel free to add it to the agenda. It is open. But the topic that we do have here on the agenda is something that I created. Just want to take another look at our milestone here. So this I'd like to see in this progress. About 2 weeks ago, we had, I think, like 6 or 7 different issues in this milestone. We're down to 3, which is very exciting. The top one here is defining how gateways should or should not interact with Gamma router configuration. There is a doc here that was created several months ago. It's gone a little stale, but Flynn was assigned to it last week. He volunteered to help Mike out in tackling this and making sure that the story is clear for the 070 release. So feeling good that there is some ownership on that particular issue. Mike, I don't suppose you've had a chance to talk with Flynn about this at all in the past week?
No, we have not.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So yeah, we'll check again next week for an update from Flynn and Mike on this one. This next item is conformance levels, defining how they should be applied to Gamma. And I actually had a question on this afternoon. The last kind of consensus that we gained from the main gateway API meeting is that since conformance tests aren't required, well, in the old framework anyway, the status quo, conformance tests aren't required until a promotion to beta. So we have some time to decide exactly how we want that to be represented with for Gamma and as far as conformance levels and support. There's been a lot of talk about conformance profiles actually, and that's kind of where we feel that Gamma conformance tests would make the most sense. I'm pretty sure this is still kind of the state of things. My question here this afternoon was just this new issue that was created cover what we need to what needs to be done for the 070 release. At the very least, we need to have a plan that's written and documented as part of our draft spec that talks about how we plan to do the conformance tests, what kind of things you want to add for the conformance test, what changes to the Gateway API framework will be used for the test methodology is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And this issue captures that. I'm wondering if we need this particular issue in the milestone, and if this new issue 1686 is sufficient. My POV is 1686 is probably sufficient here, based on our previous conversations, but I'm open to hear others' opinions here.
So my interpretation of this is that 1686 is a superset of what would be required for 1488. The define how conformance levels, release channels should be applied to Gamma. My expectation for the deliverable on that is basically like a 1 paragraph added PR to the existing gap of like, we should use conformance profiles. We will use the same conformance levels, experimental core extended implementation specific as main gateway API, and we will use the experimental channel with no immediate plans to move anything into standard. Basically a summary of like what I just said, PR'd into the gap. So I think we have pretty close to consensus on that being what we feel, is the path we want to take.
Okay, I didn't. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, just so this testing plan for mesh implementations. I know when we did our first conformance test plan for Gateway API as a whole, it was a gap. Is that kind of what we're talking about here as well, or would it be some other format, some other level of detail? Anyone thought about what this looks like?
When we first discussed this, I had recently seen the SIG multi-cluster testing plan that they're working on for MCS API for their conformance tests. So could it be a gap? Sure, probably. But that was not necessarily required, but if we want to make it required, that's fine too. I just think that this would probably be more extensive than like the 1 paragraph on how do we view it fitting in with the levels, whereas this should have like, we want to test these specific things, we plan to use this tool.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's my goal as well. I want to clarify that this should be sufficiently detailed that we understand not just at a high level, but also some implementation details, some specific test cases we want to make sure we have. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I agree that that context in mind, yeah, I agree. 1686 is probably as a superset of the other issue, and that the deliverable for 1686 should have like actual some implementation detail on uh, the specific scenarios that we're going to test as part of the testing plan. So what is the action plan here? Do we feel like we should move this? I mean, I guess they're both part of the milestone, so they should probably both stay here. Or we can close 1488, like document what Mike just said, as far as experimental, and then just like put that as a footnote here. I'm not, I don't know, any opinions on that?
I think we just keep them separate because it'll be easier to close the smaller one first. Like we can just do one small PR, target it, close it, and then it's complete rather than leaving that unblocked on the potentially more extensive one.
Fair point, yeah. Okay, and so now the question comes, is this a separate GEP or is this a modification to the conformance testing plan GEP that Rob mentioned for the original Gateway API?
I'm fine with, I think this is sufficient detail that we want to have, that I'm fine with a brand new, I'm not saying it has to be a GEP, but right now GEP is the way that we really the only mechanism we have to formally approve docs of this size. So it can start in any format, but it probably needs to end up in GEP form is my guess. But Shane, it looks like you've got an idea.
No, I just a question. I was unfortunately distracted for a quick second. I just wanted to make sure, if you wouldn't mind, just repeating what we're saying we're going to add for a GEP.
A testing plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back now. I had to walk away for a second.
Yeah, no worries. It's Mike added a good link in Zoom chat here, which we should add to the agenda or to an issue or somewhere, but it's the MCS test plan, which I think is a good baseline for the kind of detail we could include in ours. Right now, basically what I was saying is the only real mechanism we have in Gateway API to approve docs of this scale is going through the GET process. So that's probably the best fit, but I know it's not really a perfect fit. It's not really something that's going to graduate from experimental to stay, it's.
I mean,
But-
GEP seems good to me. Like
Yeah.
we want a formal doc that will be reviewed by SIG Network API reviewers. GEP seems like a fine fit for it.
Yeah. Cool.
Does anybody want to take this? I'm already working on the conformance test framework for this kind of in spare time. So I've had some thoughts here. I can take it if nobody else is.
I'm not gonna personally stand up to take this one, but I have somebody who's not here I would like to ask because they might be interested. So just if you'd give it a day, I'll ping them.
Sounds good. Yeah, just let me know.
Awesome.
Alrighty then. Do we have any other thoughts or questions or concerns about kind of our progress on this milestone?
I love that we're talking about conformance tests. It fills me with good feelings, like that we're at that point with Gamma. I'm not making a joke. Like, just good job, guys. I know it's been a lot. There's a lot of people interested in this project. It's a hard one to navigate, but we're at the point where we're starting to talk about tests, and that's good.
Yeah, tests make things feel real, and yeah, happy to be here as well.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, good. I feel like I ask this every meeting, Rob, so apologies, but do we have I know the last date that we talked about was first quarter, preferably for 070. So into first quarter, that looking probable right now.
So- I would love for it to be, I think, so the thing that I'm most aware of that seems closest to get across the line to include an 070 is path rewrites and no, all of rewrites and then just path redirects. And right now I know of 2 implementations that have support for it. And usually our bar for graduating something to beta has been closer to 3 or more implementations. So I'll keep on doing a survey to see if anyone else has support for it or has it soon. But if not, we either would need to lower our bar or wait or find something else to include in 070. Not sure which of those is going to win out, but that's current state. There may be some other things on the roadmap for 070. That's just been the one that I'm most aware of as seeming like the easiest lift because it is so close. Yeah.
Okay, so what I've got from that is hopefully into the quarter. So let's try to close on these as soon as we can and write up some sort of okay, cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's really 2 things. It's definitely want to have it out by end of quarter, but probably it would be a lot easier if one of the implementations that hasn't fit in support for it could do that. But 2, I think it could be meaningful to have a release that's Gamma only as well. Just this is the release where we formalize the Gamma spec. So in any case, I think having that timeline in mind would be good. I definitely, I hate to say KubeCon driven development, but Q1 is end of March and, KubeCon's coming around the corner just mid-April. So yeah.
Yeah, loud and clear. Okay, so for next meeting, I think what I'm going to start doing, I've time doing this already, but I think we should this milestone should pop up every meeting and make sure that we've got ownership for these things and make sure that there are people working to close the loop on it so that we can sniff out problems that were not roadblocked at the last second. Good question from Mike in the chat. Do we have an open broader issue about conformance profiles anywhere yet, including L4 gateways and things like that?
You mean for conformance levels?
Mike, are you able to provide some context there?
Yeah, so like what we've talked about previously, where we want a suite of conformance tests for L4 gateways that don't implement L7 functionality, like your Flex project, things like that. Yeah.
Yep. But it's funny you mentioned that. I am like actively writing one up while we were speaking because I noticed we didn't have one.
Awesome.
And so I will submit that within like 3 seconds.
That sounds excellent.
I love when things come together.
that we're going to gateway first.
Probably. You said gateway first?
Yeah, I mean, it's not specific for Gamma. Gamma is just HTTP route right now, no? I mean, since
we actually opened up to TCP route and other things once John's merged.
So in gate, I'm confused about the relation between gateway and Gamma. In gateway is alpha experimental. In Gamma, it's better to use the same, or are we moving with Gamma ahead of gateway?
Oh, I think I get the question. The idea, at least as I understand it, is that Gamma would become a part of the experimental channel in Gateway API. So it would be a subset of Gateway API.
Okay. So just want to mention, because HTTP route is in beta and it's shared between Gamma and Gateway. So technically it's not going to change, but the others can still be tweaked, as far as I understand.
Yeah, that's fair, because TCP route is still an experimental. There is room to change it. But so far what we've, the baseline I think we've been operating on is that HTTP route is something that would remain largely unchanged. It's on route to being stable. We may be able to make some additions if needed for Gamma, but I think the baseline capabilities are likely very similar.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm concerned about the other side. The HTTP route, I think it's settled, done. Let's not reopen it. But TCP route, we may need adjustments, or especially TLS route and the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our current direction is to, doesn't require modifications to HTTP route, which is one of the reasons why we've been pushing forward, because that's definitely our optimal approach. Optimal reality is to not have to make HTTP route changes. If it turns out that that's not possible, then we will have to revisit that. And for what it's worth, if any implementations are playing around with the Gamma APIs and find that things aren't usable, the sooner we can get that feedback, the better. Before things become set, I'll say. Any other questions? All right, thank you all. That's not the right one. This is the right one. Okay. So, Rob, you've got a question about EMEA friendly meeting time.
Yeah, so I hopefully got that acronym right, but basically, I know you've been rotating between Europe-friendly time zones and APAC-friendly, roughly, meeting times. And I am curious, I know we did this for the main Gateway API meetings, and it's come back up as more and more people are interested in attending the main Gateway meetings and just, can't make the current time fit. I'm curious how you've seen this experiment work. I know when we were originally setting up Gamma, it was, let's see how it works and reevaluate. When we originally did this with Gateway meetings, we had a pretty significant drop off in the Europe timed meeting, but it seems like you may be having the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had at least equal and definitely a few folks that are consistently able to attend the EU friendly one that are not able to make it to this meeting.
Okay. That's great. I feel like we may inevitably have to go to a model where we're kind of bouncing back and forth, where every week there's one meeting that is in each time zone, and we kind of alternate whether that's Gamma or main Gateway meeting. Figure out the timing, but just trying to get an idea of how that's been received so far, and it seems positively. So, cool. Go ahead.
One more thing on that one. I think I just wanted to catch you before you move on to the next topic. I think I agree with Mike as far as our experience. I think I take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I know of several big mesh folks who are on the East Coast, several big mesh companies that are East Coast based, Solo being one of them. Linkerd has several folks who are either on East Coast US or are in Europe. So I don't know. I know that folks would probably love to attend both. So you might get more mesh ingress cross-pollination if there is a swap, but I did just want to kind of point that out, that there is some mesh specific context that is likely leading to our attendance disparity there.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it is unfortunate that our current time is so hard for even Eastern time US to attend. So we can experiment a bit there. Yeah. The next thing I wanted to bring up was just KubeCon. As I mentioned a little bit ago, we're only 2 months away. It's coming up ridiculously quickly. Some of the people on this call were at the last KubeCon, were able to make it to some of our kind of in-person meetings, whatever, nothing very formal. I just would like to kind of open it up and see, of the people on this call who think they might be able to make it for KubeCon. And then, of that, if there's, just start thinking about what might be valuable to have at KubeCon this year. But first off, maybe just, we can do the raise hand or whatever. If you plan on being there, that could be an easy way to do a poll of sorts. Okay. Cool. And yeah, anyone else, but just definitely, if you have ideas for what we can do in person, that would be great. I think last time we just had some discussions that were helpful. We completely failed to find a way to make it a hybrid event. I'd love to figure that out more this time, because clearly there are people on this call that are not going to be able to make it. So yeah.
Time zones will be a harder issue with this KubeCon than last KubeCon.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that might prove to be an additional barrier that we didn't have in Detroit.
Yeah.
Breakfast meetings. Oh no, sorry, I'm going backwards. I'm already getting my time mixed up.
Cool. Well, that's all I had. I just wanted to get an initial feeler out there. I think the schedule formally is released tomorrow, but lots of good gateway content. I think even a little bit more than we had in Detroit. So should be a good event. So
It's exciting.
All right. Yeah. Like I said, my working on getting all the T's crossed and I's dotted to be able to be there. So I hope that all of us when I can see everybody there. That is the end of our agenda. So I am happy to give folks 30 minutes back if there's nothing else to chat about. All right. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.
Thanks, see ya.